Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We still have people trickling in, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover. We are here today to get a debrief on the recent timer survey that was completed at the end of 2024. So I'm hoping most of you had participated in the survey um, and that you find this helpful. So let's begin. See if I can get my screen to go. Okay, so this is the fifth timer survey that we completed. We actually started this in 2019. There was one year that we didn't complete it. I think it was the year of COVID. So it would have been our sixth year, but this is our fifth year. We've changed the survey over time to just kind of adjust to whatever is going on in the market. Like with COVID, we had to really adjust the questions and so forth. But we've expanded it to now that we have 68 total questions. So those are conditional questions. So if you answer yes or no, you may not see a subsequent question. So, it could be a very short survey for some and then very long for others. But we had 182 responses, which is great. And the ways that we get the survey out to the market is through our database of timers. We send emails and through our newsletters and things like that. We also posted on Timers Talk, and then we went to MyLabs and asked them to promote it, and they did that for us, which was great. But given that we don't have a lot of different avenues to get out to all timers in the industry, we know that our responses are going to be skewed a little bit more towards RunSignup's products. Not entirely, because we definitely have a good large chunk of timers that responded to the survey that don't use RunSignup's products. But we do take that in consideration when we cover the results. And we also have a little bit more MyLapse timers that answer the question, so that might skew a little bit of some of the questions. So and I'll mention that as we go when it's relevant. So, okay, that's a little background. So we're going to jump in. We have different sections of the survey. The first section of the survey is about the timer business and kind of strategies involved and challenges and things like that. The second part of the survey is covers more the technology that timers use. And then the last part of the survey is really to focus in on getting feedback on RunSignup's products. So I'm going to just go through each question and go through the answers that we got, and I talk through any kind of relevant, conclusions. If you at any time have any questions that you want to provide or submit, go ahead and use the questions area of the control panel. And then James and Soren are actually at the MyLabs conference, and they'll be answering your questions on the back end. So feel free to submit any questions along the way. And everybody will receive a recording of this within 24 hours. So you'll be able to see every nuance of data that we're sharing today. Okay, so in what region do you primarily provide timing related services in the United States? So this just shows that we do cover the entire country as well as some international, or that the responses that we received come from all different regions. It is more heavily weighted from the South and also from the Midwest, obviously, and Northeast. So not as much on the West Coast. This is pretty much similar to previous years. So how many races does your company time or provide other related race day services? So this was interesting in that the majority had about 11 to 30 races. But then, it climbed up to 51 to 75 races. About 16% of the respondents have that. But I also thought this was very interesting that 15% had over 150 races. So definitely good, large or larger business models here at play. We had one, there was definitely smaller types of businesses with about 13% only having 1 to 10 races. So, but this shows that we have a nice coverage across all different sizes of timing business. So do you own or partially own a timing business? And 63% say that they're the head honcho, but most have a skin in the game. So there's only 11% that work for someone else. So that's good to know. They're just going to take the answers and or the questions from a slightly different angle when you have skin in the game, as we all know. So do you have another real job? And we ask this every year. And this was interesting. During COVID, this actually changed in that the those that were just doing timing related services, that actually, reduced, and where people had to get, part-time jobs and everything to kind of supplement things. So, but we have 48% that this is their sole job, is providing timing related services. But on the other hand, we have a large percentage that either have a full-time job or they have a part-time job. And for us, why that's important to know is when we're building the software and we're doing the user interfaces, we're taking in consideration that that people need to be able to use the product seamlessly and easily, and that they don't have to learn a whole bunch of processes and things on using the product. It should be very intuitive. So let me see, my little thing was covering this up. So what types of events do you currently time? So it is, as we expect, majority are going to be running and walking events, but then the cross country and trail events. So it's all types of endurance events are being represented. So how do you charge for your services? So I'm sure that this is probably one of the questions that timers would be most interested in. We're going to adjust our question on this. We actually have two questions on this, but we'll adjust this for next year. We're learning based on the responses that people provided, that we need to kind of give scenarios on the types of races, because what we found is based on the responses from people, that they were actually that they had they based their prices based on the type of event, and the complexity of the event. So most of the timers do a kind of a combo approach where there's a flat fee plus an additional per participant fee. So there could be, and a lot of them that I saw in the comments, they said that they would do it after maybe 200 participants. They would do a flat fee for 200, up to 200, and then they would do an additional $1.50, $2, up to $3 per participant fee. And then the larger events, they would just do a per I'm not even going to say that again. The participant fee. So that was interesting. So, and then we asked, what is your minimum price? And across the board, the average price. So when we added them all up and we got the average, it was $890. The most frequently stated price was $500. So you see the top 5 responses here, where there was 20 had said that their flat fee was $500. That's their minimum price. And then 1,000 was the second most frequently stated, and then 750, and then 850, and then 1,200. So I had to share this with a timer. I can't remember who, and they had said, "Oh wow, I am underpricing myself." So again, we're going to dive into this a little bit more next year, a little into the nuances of how timers really price things out, so we can bring that to you, so you can know, are you pricing yourself fairly in the marketplace? We did see that people price things differently for, like, if it's an RFID timed event versus a manual versus track and field versus cross country. So all of these can play, into how you develop your pricing. Many of them have as I mentioned before, like kind of this up to 200 or 300 or even 100 participants, and then they add that participant fee after that. And then something was interesting. I saw kind of both sides of this in the comments. Some would say that they would charge their longtime customers less because out of their loyalty, and and their newer customers more. But then some said that they would give a discount to new races for the first year discount. So That was interesting. And again, you'll be receiving a recording of this, so you'll be able to see. I know this is really small on the screen, and you can zoom in if you like, but you'll get a copy of this. But this shows you the breakdown of the responses that we received from timers. I can't remember. I think we had 182 responses on this, but 21% charged less than $500. 44% charged $500 to $999. 32% charge between $1,000 and $1,499, and then 31% charge $1,500 or more. That's supposed to be a more. So what this shows, it's really across the board. At least, but you could see where it's pretty much between 500 to 2,500. That's the limit that we received for that minimum price that timers will charge. So for races that aren't able to afford your timing services, what do you do? The 58% said that they don't. If they can't afford my standard fee, it isn't worth it. And 23% said that they use limited equipment like a clock, that type of thing, just a clock, no timing. And then for the others, the response was that they would give small events maybe a discount. They'd go under their minimum fee. And then there was a lot of mentions about that they just do it for free for charity for some of them. Or they'll refer to other timers that they know that will take on those smaller races. And then a lot of them communicate, they'll suggest a do-it-yourself approach where they can, maybe manually time it themselves or kind of give them some suggestions until they grow, and then they can come back for official timing. But then we also had 13% said that they used manual timing, 9% used RunSignup's mobile timing app, and that's our newer solution that's free to race timers that they can use more of a backup type of timing, or they could use it as actually for an alternative to scoring, or scoring itself. But and also they may ship equipment and do remote timing. And there was comments about this is that the way that they do this is that they work with the event director, and if they feel confident in the event director and their staff, they may ship it, have them set it up and monitor the equipment, and they'll work with them directly, and they'll do remote scoring. So do you provide race services outside of timing? And close to 81% said yes, and this is pretty consistent. We see this pretty much every year, that the majority of timers, they're still, obviously, this is the strong segment of 19% are just providing timing services. So what services do you offer outside of timing? And the top 5 are registration, setup, and management, race directing and event management, check-in management, and event marketing, and then course certification and setup. And again, you'll get a copy of this, so you'll see what all the other things that they're doing. Did you start offering new services or use new technology this year? This was interesting in that there was 67% said no. When we were going through COVID, or when we're during COVID, this actually was very different. It was actually the opposite. And that there was a lot of timers getting into virtual technology and things like that. But for the 33% that started using new services or technology, the most mentioned were video results and cameras at the finish line, and then LED display technology and Starlink. So those were the most frequent. So how many events has your timing business added this year? 49% had 6 or more new events. And if you see here on the chart, 17% had 11 to 20, and then close to 11% had more than 20. And then, obviously that 43% had 1 to 5. But what this shows is that there was a strong growth in the industry. Only less than 8% had 0 new events added to their timing business. So there, it really shows that from a growth perspective, and it actually came out in the comments in the challenge section that this was definitely a big factor in the timing industry this last year. So what registration company do you use? And this is where we'll see that RunSignup is showing about 85% here, when in fact our market share is about 50%. So we do, as I mentioned when we started this webinar today, that we expect this to be skewed. So, and then the second most represented is Race Roster, and then athleticnet.net, MileSplit, and Direct Athletics. So how do you help your races increase registration? And really all of these are marketing types of practices. But the number one thing is email with 67%. And I will go over to the right where 19%, almost 20%, don't help their races with registrations. Given the responses here that most actually do, and if competition is increasing, which that comes up later in the results that I'll be covering, you may want to consider what are some things that I can do to help my races increase registration. So the email is definitely the top thing that people are doing. Marketing efforts, again, could cover all of these, but a lot of people think of marketing as promotion. So this would be kind of promotional efforts, social media promotion, and then pricing strategy, and then use of my email list. So that's actually something, a creative thing that timers can do is offering to use their own email list to promote to their participants and so forth to drive them to their race. And then custom website, club membership discounts. So what type of staff do you have working for you? So lead timers is, we would expect to see this, 75%. Non-technical support staff, 52%, responded that they have, and then on-course support, and then administrative. And I was curious about this, that there was marketing staff because of the last question. So do they have staff that are dedicated to doing this? And about 17% actually do. And then measuring, certifying the course. So how many full-time employees work at your timing business, and not including the owner? So 67% said zero, that they don't have full-time employees. And this actually is important because of the structure, the kind of the employment structure and staffing structure that timers follow. It does lead to challenges that come up. So 13% had one, and then 10% had 2 to 3, and then it kind of were small, very small slices for the larger ones. And then we asked, how many part-time employees and contractors does your timing business use? And this shows that it's pretty much, it really depends, goes back to, we're actually all different types of timing business, small to large, are represented from this survey. And so there isn't kind of one approach that the timers use in the industry. It really depends on the size of your business and so forth. But the majority had 2 to 3 with about 23%. But then you see that there's, between 4 to 10 employees and stuff, that's about 30% of the timers have about that size of part-time and contractors. And then about 7% have more than 26. Okay, so what are the biggest changes your company is currently experiencing? So staffing, this continues to be number one. And again, based on what we just covered, the way that timers or timing businesses staff their business, it's going to be hard to retain part-time contractors, even if you're using volunteers, obviously, and having good quality staff. And then training is going to be an issue because you have a high turnover. So that is definitely an issue for timers, and we'll cover how they address that. And then number two was growth, that they just had so much business coming in, and also just you can't be in two places at once, and how to provide quality services when you have multiple races going on in the same weekend. And then increased competition undercutting. And this came up last year as well. So where this is where competition is coming in to existing business and undercutting, and saying, going for really dirt cheap pricing for their business, but then they don't deliver, and then the races come back. And or at least that's what some of the comments say. So I would just be aware of this, that this could, even with your loyal races, that you may have someone coming in to try to undercut your business. And if that's the case, maybe just share that what you've seen is that people will come in at a lower price and then they don't deliver. And that really is going to impact the participants perception of the race. And is it really worth, having people maybe not be happy with that they're not getting the results and things like that. So maybe just be aware of that, and, be proactive. The other challenge is that events are resistant to price increases, even though there's an increase in costs with the economy. And so, that is, there's different things obviously that you can do to address that. That's something that maybe we can, in the timer summit that I'll talk about later, that we can talk through more. The other thing that timers mention is aging equipment and being concerned about, should I replace this now, or is there going to be new technology on the horizon? That kind of thing. So what are some creative things you've done to address staffing challenges? One of the things a few timers mentioned is that recruiting runners. And they recruit them at the races. And then where previously the volunteers were just volunteers, now they're offering to compensate them either through financially or through free race entries or through meals. And then friends and family, adult kids, and also compensating the adult kids. And then pay well and provide other incentives. And then they also mentioned remote timing, as I talked about before. It's just trying to implement a little bit more of that so that they can be in multiple places at once virtually. So that was the timer business section, and now we'll go into the general technology section. And James and Soren, were there any questions that we need to socialize or?
Yeah, just we have a question. Mark's asking if we have a regional breakdown of any of this information.
I don't. Well, actually, I have the regional just of the first question and where we asked people where they're from. But if there's something specific that you need to know, then we might be able to provide that. You can just send me an email at Shelly@runsignup.com. SHELLY. Okay.
Thanks, Shelley. Just that one.
Okay. Okay, so if you could share a wish list of new products, capabilities, and technology for your timing business, what would they be? We're going to reword this next year because this was right before Christmas, and it was almost like a Christmas list. A lot of people just listed out the things that they wanted. And what we were trying to get at is like, kind of new things that you haven't had that don't exist. But the top responses that we received were for LED display technologies, easier integration between RunSignup and race day scoring, improved inventory management systems, and smaller profile timing equipment, and then overhead antennas. Okay, so what timing hardware do you use? And again, because this went out specifically to MyLapse timers, this might be a little bit skewed in that, so that's why MyLapse is coming up as number one, but maybe not. So MyLapse, Finish Links, AG race timing, and ChronoTrack and race result were the top 6 or top 5. And again, you'll get a copy of this so you can see it. So what scoring software do you currently use for non-track and field events? Race Day Scoring and Race Director are RunSignup scoring solutions, so we'd expect these to be at the top. And then AG Race Timing, Run Score, and then ChronoTrack. Okay. And then are you using older scoring software, and are you planning on updating to more current software? What's great to see here is that 63% are on newer scoring software. So, but then we still have, and then where it's only 10% said, no, I'm on older scoring software and I'm not going to change. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then we have clearly about close to 20% that are that will be changing, possibly changing to newer software within the next year. So what backup timing solutions are you currently using? 62% say manual. And then Time Machine, Finish Links, Race Day mobile timing app, again, that's RunSignups, and the web score. And then the other was most mentioned were cameras and video at the finish line. Are you currently using Bluetooth technology for chip timing events? So we wanted to ask this because this is definitely coming up as a newer technology in the industry. We wanted to see, how much are timers adopting this, especially when, they're looking at what are some kind of smaller format for timing equipment and what's an easier way of doing this. And so you'll see here that we have 3.64 say yes, and those are our early adopters. And this is kind of normal when you have new technology where you see product adoption models. So we'll be monitoring this to see how this changes in the next year, and to see how much this starts getting adopted in the marketplace. But we do think that it's probably going to be a big play in the next few years. So do you offer participant tracking? And I was surprised to see this, that 42% said no, just because it's such a complement to timing. 35% offer split alerts based on timing equipment. 31% do results only, so they finish results. And then 21% offer continuous tracking of location, like with RaceJoy. And then 20% offer estimator-based split progress updates. So that's kind of like RTRTs, and that's not continuous GPS. So if you're using an app to provide tracking, which do you use? And the number one we would expect to be RaceJoy, because that's RunSignup's product. So this is skewed. This, I wouldn't say this is something we could extrapolate out to the marketplace. But then RTRT would be second, and then custom, which is pretty expensive, and then MyLapse, and then Race Roster was also mentioned. The Race Roster came out in others, so we'll get that added to the question next year. Are you interested in using free results integrated photo application that immediately posts photos from phones and tablets? And the majority of people are interested in this, which is great because it's something that we'll be launching in the next year. So look for that to come. So that was the technology section. I'm now going to go into RunSignup specific section where we get feedback on our products. If you don't use RunSignup and you're not interested in this section, then by all means feel free to exit the call. But hopefully you got value from the initial portions of the debrief. But you're also welcome to stay on to hear the responses that we have for our products. So we asked, please select the RunSignup Race Day tools you have used during 2024. And the top 5 were the Race Day registration, Race Day check-in app, which we'd expect, the Race Day results, and the bib management, and then Race Day scoring. And then we asked, which of these do you feel helped you most this year and why? So this has traditionally always been the Race Day check-in app. And again, the Race Day check-in app came on top. We actually had a close second that I'll cover in a moment. But I'm not going to read all of these, but the main gist of them is that it made the registration run so much more smooth and less waste of bibs and chips. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that came out in a lot of the, well, not a lot of the comments, but a few of the comments is that, as it was represented in one of these, is that once the race realized we got them over to, once we convinced them to try it, they loved it. So, if you have a race that is maybe resisting this, just realize it might be worth trying to persuade them, because in the end, they will appreciate it and they will like it. So the second runner-up, very close to the check-in app that we love to see, was that race day scoring was the most valued. So, and the reason why I say that we love to see that is because we've invested heavily in our time and financially and so forth into the race day scoring product. So, one of a lot of the feedback that we received is more about it just being an easier timing experience compared to things like RunScore, and that the real-time integration between the registration, the check-in app, and everything really makes things more seamless and easier to use. And then there was comments that kind of combined both race day scoring and the check-in app, and how much value that they received from that. If you have recently used RunSignup support services, how would you rate RunSignup's services? And we're looking for at least a 3. Our goal really is a 4 or higher, and we definitely exceeded expectations because our rating was at 4.6. And as many of you know that work with RunSignup, our support is not just our traditional support staff that answers the info at email, but and they're available through on the weekend, and they do a fabulous job, and they're definitely dedicated. But your support staff from RunSignup also includes people like Matt Avery, Soren, and James Harris, and so forth, that are available throughout the week. So I think that's represented here. So we asked, how happy are you with the race day scoring? And the average rating was, again, exceeds expectations. And this is fabulous, and it's slightly up from last year. So we were very happy to see this. And we only had one little slightly frowny face. Okay, so what percentage of events are you using race day scoring to score participants? And 64% are using them for the majority of events. So what this tells us is that timers' confidence level continues to increase, where they're really making the transition where they're using race day scoring for all of their types of their events. How easy is it to use race day scoring? So what we're looking at from here is that on the left, that would be not easy to use, and then on the right is very easy to use. So we want to see this wave over to the right, which we have. And so the wave represents that, or shows to us, is that timers feel that it's very, very easy to use. How happy are you with the race day check-in app? And again, we exceeded expectations with 4.64. This is wonderful to see. So. Which functions do you use for the race day check-in app? So we wanted to see this because, we launched these different capabilities with using as a result kiosk. You can also do medical tent check-ins and emergency contact information lookup. It shows us that those kind of additional functions are being used, but obviously not as much as our participant check-in and bib assignment and bib lookup and things. But there is, obviously a number of different features within the app. And then the volunteer check-in is about close to 26% of people or timers are using that for the volunteer check-in. So which functions do you use when using the race day mobile timing app? So 76% use it as a backup mode only. And then we have a sliver for scoring, but then 20% use backup and scoring, which is great. How happy are you with the RunSignup's results platform? And again, we exceeded expectations with a 4.28. And then how happy are you with race joy? So we're above average, almost exceeding expectations, but of course we really want to strive to that 4. And our rating this year was 3.72, which was the same as last year. And so we are doing a number of things with race joy this next year. We hope that you'll appreciate that and like those changes. We did have actually some substantial new features within RaceJoy this last year with the RFID bib alerts, or we call them bib alerts because participants may not understand what RFID is, but RFID chip alerts. So now that you can offer GPS tracking as well as your official race timed alerts within the app using race day scoring. But look for the changes to come. We hope that you appreciate those this coming year. So how do you charge for Race Joy? So this was a new question this year. The flat fee was 57%, close to 58%. 30% offer it for free, and then 20% incorporate it into the overall service fee. Then we asked, what do you charge? And the average price for Race Joy is $500. It ranges from like 500 to 1,000. And I thought this was interesting that someone had posted they do 500 for non-emergency mode and then 1,000 for dedicated staff for monitoring emergency. So for maybe a larger event, that's more important. How happy are you with RunSignup's photo platform? So again, we exceeded expectations with the average rating of 4.38, which is great. And then we asked, do you offer events ticket services for things like race festivals, VIP events, and parking and things like that? 16% said yes. So this continues to increase. This is definitely an increase from last year. 30% said no, and they don't want to. But there's a strong interest in this as another revenue source for timers, especially as our TicketSignup solution continues to grow. I need to drink some water. Okay. And then our final question was, what would you like training on? And the number one was remote timing, race days, and then race day scoring, and then growing and keeping your business, and then new timer staff training and marketing tools for your events, which is very much in line with what we heard about during the debrief of the surveys. These are the things that are kind of top of mind for timers. And the reason why we ask this is that this kind of guides our webinar schedule throughout the year. So we'll take this into consideration as we're figuring out what we'll provide training on in the coming months. So that was the end of the survey. I do want to ask if you would like to know something specifically in 2025, then go ahead and type in that into the questions here. We won't cover those during this call here, but definitely type them into the questions or the chat feature, whichever one you want, and share what you'd like to know, and we'll see if we can add it in. And we're happy to try to find out what is most pressing to you. And then finally, I wanted to share that the Timer Education Summit that we're having at the end of January in Tampa is sold out. It's actually sold out for the second time. We expanded space and opened it up more because we had such a strong interest, but now it's sold out. But if you would like to attend, then definitely join the waiting list. And then we'll see if anybody bows out, then you'll be able to go. And if you have signed up and you're not going, then please let us know so we can open up the spot for another timer. So with that, if there's any final things, James or Soren, that we need to cover, let me know.
The questions look like they're all for future survey stuff right now.
Okay, great. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you coming to this, and hopefully you found this beneficial, and hopefully I get to see a lot of you at the upcoming Timer Education Summit in Tampa.
Oops.
Great.
Hold on, Shelley. I do have one real quick.
Okay, sorry.
Adam's asking with the strongest response on what people want on timing to be remote timing. and that being something that people need for growth, if there are plans or what plans would be for moving race day scoring to the cloud.
I think that would be a James. James, are you on? Maybe he's not on. Um, yeah, I think that's more of a James question. Or Sworn, are you familiar with what our plans are with that?
James and I can follow up on that.
Okay, yeah, they'll follow up with you. Sorry, I'm not. I know that there's this has come up actually, and I can't remember the response that James had for that. So sorry about that. Okay, everyone, thank you very much. Bye bye.